Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. We have a great show coming your way today on GoJo and Golic. Here's what you have to look forward to. Decision time in Dallas. The pressure is on to get those deals done after what we saw in that preseason game. Plus, we are so back, baby. College football, week 0. It happened, it came, it went. We saw an upset in Ireland. Amazing. Plus, Beaux is going to join us live. Love to see that. And I'm not alone in the studio. The guys are here in person. We got a great show coming your way. Let's do it.
Everybody, welcome to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield over at a tiny table, but all in the same studio here.
I love it.
Hanging out in Boston here. What's going on, bud?
Man, it's great to have you guys in the studio. I'm happy to be relegated to the tiny chair.
Boy, to see you, the distance you have to cover to do that open and then get to that chair
feat.
It's just, it's Noah Lyles is nothing on you.
Yeah, you can tell I'm an athlete.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Jesse has respect for the fact that the NBA champs are, in fact, the world champions.
That's
of course I do.
Here we are.
Of course.
We got a great show for everybody today. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review us. Leave us a 5-star rating and check us out here live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network, our YouTube channel, and all those fun places here. Beaux Collins, David Hale also going to stop by. Does a great job covering the ACC over at ESPN and the ACC Network. And Dad, I don't know if you saw, amongst a lot of things that went on, this is sort of a cool weekend in sports because you've got the soft launch of college football with week 0 where Florida State losing to Georgia Tech, undoubtedly the story there. And then in the NFL, we've got the final preseason game. We only do 3 of them now. We're going to have the final roster cutdowns, really now the only roster cutdown where they go to 90, from 90 man down to the 53 plus practice squad and everything all by the afternoon tomorrow. But wrapping up the preseason and now turning the page, the next time the NFL is on the field, it's going to be for real football games along with college football's week 1 coming up. It feels like spring. It's only right that the first day of school for a lot of people is coming up today too. So it's all in the air.
How about it? Back to school, back to school. A little, Billy Madison.
Prove to Dad that I'm not a fool. I know that. You know that. Jesse is making the face like she has no clue.
Yeah, I honestly did not.
Didn't know it was Billy Madison?
I didn't know where that was from.
Everybody catching the school bus today. The school bus, a whole nother, society in itself.
I was going to say, do we even do school? Do school buses?
Yeah, we do school. Yes,
I guess
we
I
do
see
school
them.
buses.
No.
Well, what do you mean no? I know I stop for school buses on the road.
True. I guess I don't know what I'm saying. I see them out there.
I was going to see there's school buses everywhere. Not everybody gets driven to school. I took the school bus. I mean,
did you get driven to school?
No, I rode the bus.
Okay,
that's where I learned it. Well, I learned all my cuss words from my mom, quite honestly. In high school, before I got my license, she would drive me to school, and I learned every curse word that I know from my mom. Shouts out, and I learned how to use them well. But the school bus before that is where you learn everything.
You rode on the school bus. Yeah, that's a rite of passage to ride on the school bus. Absolutely, man.
I never rode on the school bus. I rode on the school bus if we went on like a field trip.
Okay.
I didn't ride the school bus every day because my parents loved me and they drove me.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, you know what? We love the back to school feel of everything going on today. We can get into that more later on, but Dad, before we get to the mishaps from college this weekend here, it is that last look that we got yesterday and the day before at all of the players trying to make the extended rosters here and some of the complicating factors, because we think of this as just, hey, guys that are going to round out special teams, guys that are going to help supplement the roster, those great stories of players that go on to make the team and then you hear their name on special teams.
Right.
There are some teams, cough, cough, the Dallas Cowboys, who walk out of this still with a little bit more of like an existential crisis on their hands as they are trying to juggle the receiver that they need to pay, the quarterback that they need to pay, and the backup that they saw yesterday throw 5 interceptions that they thought maybe they could go out in the bargain bin and get something for their future. Probably not working out that way.
The last preseason game, and it is interesting now with only the 3, you have the bye week, no games, no NFL games next weekend, but we have week 1 of college football. So we're good before we get into the start of the NFL season. And the last preseason games are used differently by different coaches. Some play their starters. Some don't even dress their starters. Some starters haven't played at all in preseason. So every coach is kind of different because you are working out the back end of your roster. Or if you're the Steelers, you're trying to figure out who your starting quarterback is, which Mike Tomlin said he'll make at the end of the week. We'll talk about that, but I think that one is a foregone conclusion. And then you have the teams where one of your mainstays are out. A CeeDee Lamb, a Brandon Ayuk, a Jamar Chase has gone back to practice, but that's still with no contract extension that he wanted. But the Cowboys, I mean, they're in a tough situation. Not having CeeDee Lamb and Mike McCarthy saying, well, I still have a healthy thought process for week one. Well, what's he going to say? I mean, you know, you're not going to talk about doom and gloom if you're not going to have one of your best players there.
No, certainly. Mike McCarthy is in an interesting place himself because he obviously walks into the season on tepid ground. What I would say for the Cowboys is everything we saw this preseason reinforced the idea that Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb are incredibly valuable to that team. Trey Lance, you got a little bit of everything yesterday. And it's not to say that this was ever some real serious consideration for Dak Prescott's replacement. I think it was a flyer they took on a talented player because they had the luxury in that quarterback room of doing so. And you got a guy that this weekend went out and went 33 of 49 for 323, but also had 5 interceptions in this last game. And so you hear Jerry Jones talking about this after the game with Trey Lance, and I think you kind of get an idea of where he's at.
Yeah.
Think we've got the sound? Maybe?
We're not at the sound?
Well, I saw good, and I saw some things that you'd like to have back. I hated those 5 intercepts are going to be a stat on a game that I couldn't have asked for more reps and better situation to watch him play, and he needed that because the one thing he's missing more than anything is the lack of reps, much less NFL reps. Saw some good things and saw some things you'd like to have back, but overall, I'm glad to have that outing with us, and certainly we're planning on him being on our roster for sure.
Oh, yeah, he's going to be on the roster. Cooper Rush is going to be a perpetual backup.
Yeah, I mean,
he's not going to be the starter, the going into a season start of a team, barring an injury. And Trey Lance is the question mark because Dak Prescott is the question mark. I mean, yeah, 5 interceptions is going to be the stat. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And there was some good and some bad, but this is a guy, again, remember, those that forgot, was traded up for by San Francisco to be the number 3 pick in the draft, and is still trying to find his footing. And I still think things are going to get worked out with Dak Prescott, so I think Trey Lance is still going to be in kind of limbo.
And I guess that's what I come back to is this was never a serious answer. What Jerry described there is unfortunately going to, I think, be the case for Trey because his problem is one that is only solved by real reps. And he's not going to be in a position where anyone is going to give him the reins to get real reps for their team long enough to turn those 5 interceptions into something more palatable to go along with the good that you saw in the ability because like Anthony Richardson is dealing with now in a Colts team that's incentivized and in position to give him real game reps to learn at, provided he stays healthy, it's a different situation. And so it keeps coming back to, for the Dallas Cowboys, and underscoring, you don't have an answer on your roster at that position outside of Dak Prescott. And so over the weekend, we hear more about CeeDee Lamb, their star wide receiver, who, whether it was Jeremy Fowler at ESPN or Tom Pelissero at the NFL Network, saying basically, yeah, the Cowboys are talking to him a lot more. The last 10 days has included a little more sense of urgency than Jerry Jones had let on prior to that. And it sounds like right now that is the priority. But I believe it was Tom Pelissero that said, or no, Jeremy Fowler that said, they're trying to get both these guys signed by week one. They are efforting to try and make CeeDee Lamb the priority right now because he is contract-wise and he is certainly going to be a guy they want around there no matter what. Dak Prescott, we've acknowledged, more complicated because Dak has incentive to not sign whatever they put in front of him.
I was going to say, Dak has great incentive to not sign what they put in front of him, just be a free agent at the end of the year. With CeeDee Lamb, and the reports are he doesn't want to be the highest paid wide receiver. Justin Jefferson makes $35 million a year, so that's what we thought. We thought Lamb would slot in below that. Ayuk would probably slot in at the high 20s. area, but and Jamar Chase, well, the report was he wanted 40 a year, which isn't going to happen. But let's stick to CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb doesn't want to be the highest paid, so just a little bit below Justin Jefferson. Man, the framework should be there, but this is the week to get it done, to get him in. Again, he's not going to get true, fast-paced game speed action, because the preseason games are done. You can only simulate so much in practice of what's going on. And, oh, by the way, let's throw in there the fact that Deron Bland, on their secondary, broke his foot, and he's out 6 to 8 weeks. They had trouble stopping the run. They were better against the pass. Deron Bland is out 6 to 8 weeks, and Trayvon Diggs is coming off an ACL.
Right.
He just got back to practicing, so Jordan Lewis is going to have to pick up the slack there. So one of the better parts of your team, your pass defense, is now hurting a little bit. You don't have your best wide receiver. Things aren't boding well right now for the Cowboys.
No, which is why if you've got things that you can control, because those are outside of your control. You can't control that Deron Bland has that happen to his foot. You're not going to be able to control a number of the things injury-wise that inevitably pop up for teams. But you can control making sure that the star receiver that you know is one of the best in the league and certainly the most important part of your offense, non-quarterback edition, and then the guy that's supposed to throw him the football can both be under contract for you. That's something you could have done a long time ago. We know this is the MO for the Cowboys, that unfortunately their fans are used to this being standard operating procedure in a way that says, I believe the CeeDee Lamb deal is going to get done before week one.
Yes.
This is how they do business. They're going to get it in right before the buzzer sounds here. I still think Dak Prescott's willing to go ahead and push this thing into the offseason and say, I'm going to ride out this year. I know what's on the other side of this and go from there. And so based on those reports, hearing from Jeremy Fowler and Tom Pelissaro, who are, again, guys that we trust, saying, the Cowboys are now, in a way that Jerry Jones didn't pay lip service to before, prioritizing CeeDee Lamb and getting this contract done. I think that gets done. I think the Dak Prescott conversation now, because of the power he wields, not being able to get franchise tag next year, he has that leverage in his contract, makes this a completely different story altogether. So we've got that on one side as far as quarterback questions. But Jesse, another one may have popped up last night. We've already got our 3 rookie quarterbacks getting ready to head in as the starters for week 1. Might we have a 4th after last night?
Ooh, do I smell a QB controversy? Unfortunately, we might. So Jacoby Brissett sustained an injury to his throwing shoulder in the first quarter of Sunday's loss to the Commanders. Not great, guys. Gerard Mayo saying he could have gone for longer if the plan had been to play him for longer. So Gerard Mayo saying, I talked to him. We'll see Monday. You always feel a little bit more sore the next day, but he said he was good. Okay. May came in, obviously, everybody with bated breath waiting to see what would happen. He was impressive behind that very shaky O-line, not good. That offensive line took 8 penalties in the game. Despite that, May went out there 13 for 20, 143 total yards and a touchdown. No interceptions. Now, after the game, Gerard Mayo was forced to express some concern about that O-line, as we all were.
I think it is a concern. I think the biggest concern for me, it's not the X's and O's of what to do. It's just the lack of discipline that they showed today. And that's on all of us. That's on me. It starts with me. I got to be more diligent in getting on those guys about pre-snap penalties, and the rest of the coaches have to do the same thing. But the players also have to take responsibility for those pre-snap penalties. Look.
So what do you guys think? Could we see a 4th rookie quarterback starting here? And do you want that in this situation?
Well, and see, those are two very different questions. Because, Dad, I think what we've seen and what we've heard behind the scenes, you go back to the second preseason game where Drake May started to look a little bit more comfortable. And then you heard the reports behind the scenes that, well, he's starting to look more confident in camp now. And he's starting to feel like, hey, maybe this rookie who was a little bit shell-shocked at first, this offensive style, West Coast offense is different than what he ran in college. There were some things footwork-wise getting under center that were all new to him. Now he's starting to feel it. You saw more of those things manifest last night. The first drive where he went in, which I felt like was probably ahead of schedule. I know they're saying they didn't plan to play Jacoby Brissett a lot, but he takes one big hit and then is immediately out. It seems like they saw the writing on the wall, and Drake May comes in and immediately responds on a drive where there were 2 snap mishaps, at least one of which wasn't his fault. There was an offensive line full of penalties and guys getting driven into the backfield. And Drake May still has a big 3rd down conversion with his legs, has a couple of great rips in the passing game for them, and leads them on a scoring drive in the face of that. You've seen enough to where I think you could have a real conversation about him being capable of playing. But then you see the offensive line situation that they were without David Andrews, but the rest of those guys, that's kind of what it's going to look like right now, and it didn't look great. So I don't know how much you want him out there behind that early on.
So he can move, and he can run, not obviously like Jaden Daniels, but he can move to be dangerous enough, had the 3rd and 14 scrambled for the first down. So he can run, which helps in the fact that it's a bad offensive line in front of him. But do you put that offensive line, or do you put him behind that offensive line too? Because the ringing of David Carr in your ears when he got drafted.
I mean, the ringing of Bryce Young in your ears from last year.
Yeah, but David, you're right. I go back years to David Carr when he was behind the Texans O-line and just got obliterated for a record amount of sacks.
I guess I just say, for people that may not remember that,
right.
If you want to just remember back to the yesteryear of last year, where now we've got a full-blown reclamation project going on in Carolina, it can be that easy to take a talented player and screw them up. I'm with you, though. Drake May, he's used to this. Like, the line he had at Carolina during college did not afford him a ton of time and protection. He's used to running for his life and having to make plays.
Yep, he can move. Brissett, not as much, but Brissett will probably get rid of the ball quicker behind that old line. So it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Do you worry about a quarterback mentally getting hit that much to hurt his technique? And then as far as the O-line, listen, 8 penalties, 4 alignment penalties, a tackle lining up too deep. You know what that is. I mean, that's a lack of confidence in your pass rushing or pass blocking.
Yes.
You're trying to set up deeper to be able to get a better set on the edge rusher, right?
Sure.
And you're lining up too deep. So you're counted in the backfield, and it's an alignment mistake. So they got issues on that offensive line. Alignment mistakes you can fix. But, again, I think the alignment mistakes are part of the mental side of I need more room to pass block. So now I'm back on the line.
Yeah.
How much mentally are you like, oh, boy, I got to take on this edge rusher, and I can't cheat back as far as I want to go.
Yeah, I say for anyone that missed it or is unfamiliar, essentially the rule is your helmet as the tackle has to break the belt line of the center on offense. You're usually lining up on the guard, and when that's not the case, they throw four flags on you in this game in a way that's just inexcusable, especially this late in camp. Because, again, these aren't just the 4th-string guys that you're throwing in there. These are happening to some guys that you're going to count on for meaningful moments. And so, Dad, it's one of those things where we kind of got a preview of it last night. Whether or not we think Drake May is ready, he's 1 hit away. And it's 1 hit behind an offensive line that unfortunately seems like they're going to give up a few of those over the course of the game. And if you're the New England Patriots, I think at least you are heartened by the fact that your rookie doesn't look like a deer in headlights.
Exactly.
Right?
I think that's exactly right. I still think they start Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah.
I still think they start him, but I think they breathed a little bit of a sigh of relief and a little bit of our guy isn't a deer in headlights.
Yeah.
Our guy can function out there pretty well, runs well, rolled left through a nice touchdown pass, but that was called back because of an alignment issue with the offensive line. So I do think, you always look for the glass half full, not the glass cracked. And I think that's something you can look for with Drake May is they have more confidence in him that if, and more importantly, when they have to put him in, and he's going to get in, it's just a matter of when, that they feel confident that he can run the offense.
Yeah, because you look at all these rookie quarterback situations that we're talking to right now. We've talked ad nauseum about Caleb Williams in Chicago, the great supporting cast there, what it seems like they've built around him. For Jaden Daniels in Washington, the offensive line, a bit of a concern. You've got Terry McLaurin there, which is great. And the Cliff Kingsbury question.
Eckler in the backfield, which helps. Yeah.
And to go along with the other running back there, you're going to have guys to help him there. But the Cliff Kingsbury problem of, hey, it starts off hot, and then it usually levels off or goes down in the back half of the season. Is he going to be able to help his quarterback out enough as the football goes along to do that? You've got Beaux that landed with Sean Payton, who, as far as designing game plans and getting a young quarterback up to speed, does seem to be a huge asset to this player at this juncture of his career. And then you're looking at Drake May as a distant third where, hey, Alex Van Pelt seems like a coordinator you can trust, comes from Kevin Stefanski, does a lot of things that can help a young player. But unfortunately, the roster around him, Jalen Polk popped, some of those receiver changes seem to have helped. But that group in front of him, the first foundation and the first line of defense for your quarterback, unfortunately seems woefully behind everyone else.
I do think he'll get in this season. I think it would be smart to get him in this season and get him some reps. But I still don't think he starts the season. All depending on Jacoby Brissett's shoulder, which it doesn't seem like it was too bad, and he has 2 weeks before the first game.
Certainly a hope that Jacoby Brissett is doing well enough and gets his day in the sun here. But coming up next, the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets got their day in the sun, and they might still be dancing coming all the way back from Ireland after a big win against Florida State. We'll talk about it next on GoJo and Golic.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. College football returned over the weekend, and oh brother, it did not disappoint. Over in Ireland, Georgia Tech stunned FSU, knocking them off, getting the upset win with a field goal as time wound down. Aiden Burr made the 44-yarder as time expired, and the Yellow Jackets promptly broke out into an Irish jig to celebrate. Amazing form. The win was Georgia Tech's first over a top 10 opponent since that 22-16 victory over the Seminoles in October 2015. And notably, Georgia Tech almost doubled up on FSU when it came to rush yards, 190 to 98. A man after GoJo's own heart, head coach Brent Key had this to say after the win.
As a former offensive lineman, how much pride did you have watching that group control the line of scrimmage?
Are you kidding me? Run the ball.
Run the ball. Okay.
When you hire the O-line coach to be your head coach, the strategy shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. What a win for Brent Key and company here as he continues to build this program, Dad. A Georgia Tech squad that had 2 wins over ranked ACC teams in 2022, 2 more in 2023, and now starts the year off beating 10th ranked Florida State. Hard to get any better than that, so You and I last week did our college football playoff extended 12-team bracket. Both of us picked Florida State to win the ACC. You ready to sell that stock after one game, Dad? What'd you make of what you saw in Dublin from a team that was supposed to be the best team in the ACC?
I think we on paper talked about how good Florida, even though they lost a number of players, of who they picked up in the portal. And this is the danger of picking up guys in the portal who are ranked high and ranked well, but you can't get it all together. They're supposed to have one of the best D lines, even though they lost two guys in the draft.
Jared Verse and Braden
Fisk lost them both to the Rams. That you replace them. You replaced a wide receiver. You replaced a running back. You replaced a quarterback with high-ranking guys and think, okay, you're going to gel, but there's no preseason games. There's only fall camp. And it comes down to mistakes, of which there weren't many. I mean, there were one penalty for Florida State and just 3 for Georgia Tech.
I was going to say a clean game in the area that's usually the messiest.
I was surprised at that, but you don't know how well guys are going to play with each other because you're not playing at game speed for any of your practices. And you found out when you get ground down. Now, Florida State had the ball for longer than Georgia Tech. Florida State had more plays than Georgia Tech. But Georgia Tech ground the ball, ran the ball, and to the tune of 190 yards, 5.3 yards per rush average to control the ball that way.
Well, and I guess that's the most surprising part to me is Georgia Tech controlled the lines of scrimmage on both sides of the ball.
Both sides of the ball.
For a team in Florida State that was supposed to have, at the very least, one of the most talented defensive lines. Right. And we talked about it, over 190 starts coming back on the offensive line there, and yet probably the biggest area of improvement, because Georgia Tech, again, their head coach was an offensive line coach. That group, when you go back and watch last year, was incredibly well coached, played together very well, understands their identity at a really high level. And with Haynes King at quarterback, who's incredibly mobile, reminds me a lot actually of Notre Dame's Riley Leonard in the way he runs. And then Jamal Haynes, who was last year making the conversion from wide receiver to running back and burst on the scene, who looked electric, had dudes touching grass out there left and right in that game, 75 yards and 2 touchdowns for Georgia Tech. Dad, their offense was designed for upsets.
Yeah.
Mobile quarterback, tons of speed at skill positions, a well-coached veteran offensive line. That was ready-made for it there. But for them to push around that group up front, the biggest jump, though, Georgia Tech on defense. Wasn't built to party last year. Tyler Santucci comes over after being on Mike Elko's staff with Duke, which I'd start to watch out. We saw the Mike McDonald coaching tree in the NFL start to break off. I'd imagine a lot of people are going to be looking at other staffers from Elko's system because schematically they put a ton of pressure on DJ Uiagalelei and this offense. And Dad, that's probably the biggest question coming off this game. That Florida State offense looked like it had zero confidence in allowing DJ to push the ball downfield. And you saw, because of that, Georgia Tech could get all their guys up at the line, play fearless and downhill, and not have to worry about any threat of a deep passing game. And so do you think that is just, hey, it's week one with a lot of new guys, or is this indicative of who DJ Uiagalelei has been his entire career so far?
This is what the game plan is going to be against them. Let DJ prove that he can throw the ball, right? So crowd the line of scrimmage, take away their running attack, and make him prove that he can beat you in the pass. And the defense has to step up more to stop the opposing offense. Defensive line, this touted D line, again, even though losing 2 to the Rams early in the draft, had no sacks in this game. As you mentioned, Georgia Tech controlled the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Last time they won a season opener was 2020 against Florida State. So it's not like they're not used to beating Florida State in the season opener. They did it a few years ago. But what a fantastic win for Brent Key. But for Mike Norvell, I mean, wow. I mean, you have to be stunned at this outcome that you couldn't just pull it out. It'd be, what was a 46-yard field goal, 44-yard field goal to win it with 5 seconds to go. I'm sure at that point he's praying just get it to overtime because they scored late in the game, but then give up a big drive for Georgia Tech going down the field. Georgia Tech actually has a bad snap, loses a bunch of yards, but gets it back on third down to the 26-yard line, so it was a 44-yarder. I mean, they just did everything right, and Norvell's got to just be like head-scratching, knowing you're still in it.
I was going to say, that's the biggest difference now in this year in the expanded playoff that we've talked about is now we've all got to do the math of, to your point, hey, in the portal era, How much time do we give these guys to say, hey, we know they're going to probably be better come late September, early October when these guys, because DJ Uiagalelei has his flaws. Is he ever going to be one of the 4 or 5 best quarterbacks in college football like you thought coming in? No, I don't think so. Someone pulled up, by the way, the other day. You know who the number 2 ranked quarterback in DJ's class was coming out of high school?
Who?
CJ Stroud.
Oh, really?
Like, that's where we're at this point. So he's not going to be in that group of players. But to the point about the deep ball, Dad, that is one of the things that with the kind of arm strength that he's had, it didn't show up in this game, but we've seen in the heavy play action stuff he ran last year, even when he was at Clemson to some extent. We talked to Roddy Jones about this last week. Throwing that deep over especially was something that was kind of in his bag. Mike Norvell's a good deep play designer, so I trust that to get a little bit better as things go along. But you're right, I think it is, oddly enough, both lines of scrimmage that we thought were the ready-made things. Because, again, that's going to have to be your strength. DJ's not going to lead you a quarterback, and I don't think that was ever the expectation that he was going to come in and be the guy that dragged a roster to a championship. He was going to have to produce and make some plays where it counted, but the strengths were expected to be the people in front of him on either side of the ball.
And they still have Clemson. The mid-season this starts. They have a run of Boston College, Memphis, Cal, SMU. And then they get Clemson, a couple weeks later Miami, and a couple weeks later Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So now we are in a different era where 2 losses can get you in to the playoffs, no doubt about it.
And all you've got to do in their case is, like, the Notre Dame game does not really matter in this conversation because it's not
Clemson and Miami.
You got to get to your conference championship game, and you've got to win that, and then no matter what else, that you're in. So they've still got the path there.
Or you can beat Clemson, beat Miami, get to your championship game, lose it for your second. Well, that way, if they lost to Notre Dame, it would be their 3rd loss. So
it would be, and that would complicate things more. That's why I'm saying, like, winning the direct path to it is, hey, just win your conference and you're in, no matter what the other blemishes look like. And to your point, you get the other big bads that you're going to have to go up against. But now, Dad, if I gave you a redo and said after this weekend, we both picked Florida State to win the ACC title, you saw what that looked like, you've got the benefit of that, and I say you get one mulligan, would you take it and pick Miami or Clemson over them now to win?
I don't know, because by the time they get to Clemson, that's 6 weeks or so. The guys are going to be playing better together. To your point, I think it's a great point, what you brought up, of how quickly can you get, when you have a decent amount of portal guys, to mesh together. But I think they'll be meshed together by Clemson. So if I lean anywhere, I think I lean Miami.
Okay,
I think I lean. I know Clemson with their defense, I get it. But boy, they've given themselves basically no rope at all. No leeway at all.
Miami, the team with the most upside. Clemson, the blue chip stock, the team who's been there before. And Florida State, who's got to now go out and prove to everyone. After an offseason where we heard a lot of complaining about the CFP from last year, a lot of talk about that, couldn't back it up in week 1. What does it look like going forward? We'll bring in David Hale, our friend and ESPN college football reporter, next to give a State of the Union for the ACC on GoJo and Golic. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., and Jesse Cofield all hanging out in studio here today, just budding around in here. And while we're hanging out with some buds here, we bring in our friend, ESPN and ACC college football reporter, and more importantly for today, Taylor Swift and bacon aficionado.
Yes.
We found out David's had a hell of a morning already in preparation for the show, joining us now, coming off a big weekend for the Atlantic Coast Conference. Good morning, man. How you doing?
I'm well. Kids are back at school. The bacon is flowing. The world is great. What's to complain about?
Do the kids take a school bus to school?
I drop them off in the morning, and then they take the school bus home.
Okay.
The school pickup line is the problem. The drop-off, that's easy peasy. The pickup line, where you've got to prep for it, you got to be there by lunchtime in order to get through the pickup line in any sort of a timely fashion.
North to pick up, south.
Do that.
Yeah, north to pick up, south to drop off. All that, following all the rules, huh?
I don't do well with rules in general. I don't follow directions well.
There we go. Well, an ungovernable David Hale with us this morning here. And the ACC started off full coastal this weekend in terms of being ungovernable, man. Florida State gets dropped on the road in Ireland by Georgia Tech. What was your biggest takeaway from this game? We were just talking. There was so much interesting packed into our first look at college football for the season. What surprised you the most about this outing?
I want to start with saying something good about Georgia Tech, because I don't want it to be overlooked that they played a hell of a good football game. And to me, I knew they could move the ball offensively. Haynes King's a dog. Jamal Haynes, good running back. That was a terrible rush defense last year. They bring in Tyler Santucci as the new defensive coordinator, and he did a terrific job. After that first drive from Florida State, they effectively shut down the run game. To me, that's a night and day improvement from where Georgia Tech was last season. But if I'm talking about the biggest takeaway, the thing that has the biggest ripple effects throughout the ACC and college football, the defensive front was a train wreck for Florida State. That's astonishing to me. I know you lose Jared Verse and Braden Fest. That happens, and you're always replacing guys. They brought in some big names. Del Jackson, who was out all of last year because of portal-related issues, but Marvin Jones Jr., Ciola Lalahia, this was supposed to be a premier unit in college football, and they were just absent from the game, basically. And it wasn't just that they got no pressure on Haynes King. The containment was a train wreck. The amount of times that Jamal Haynes took it to the outside and there was no one setting the edge was just it was a debacle for Florida State. And all of that leads to these 12-play, 8-minute drives that utterly sucked the wind out of any energy that Florida State might have had at any point during the game. I mean, there was 2 drives in the fourth quarter, one long one for Florida State, one long one for Georgia Tech. It was that's on the Florida State defense for not being able to get off the field.
So, in Georgia Tech, probably the best running attack they'll have before they get to another ranked team in Clemson in October. So, I'm wondering, do you think all the pieces that were from the portal will be together by the time Clemson game hits October 5th?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's too much talent for me to say that is not a fixable situation. And I don't want to take too much from a week 0 game played in Ireland where you've got basically no tape on what the opponent's defense is going to do and stuff like that. A lot of this, I think, will get fixed. And one thing I feel very confident in saying is that Mike Norvell is a hell of a football coach, and they will address some of the problems. On the other hand, there's just some stuff with Florida State that is reality. And one of the realities is DJ Uyunglele probably just is who he is. And every year we're like, no, this is the year he's going to turn into the Heisman guy. He's just not that guy. And one of the big questions I have coming out of that game, if you watched it, the play calling, Mike Norvell's taking some heat for that. To me, it felt intentional. And it was either intentional in that I'm not okay putting the game in DJ's hands early, or I don't trust my wide receivers at all, or some combination of both. And to me, those were the 2 biggest questions I had about Florida State going into the season. And coming out of week 0, I'm like, I don't know, man. It looks like Mike Norvell's as worried about this as I am.
Apparently, the only one who was able to see the future on this front was Seamus on the College Game Day chat.
Yeah.
Goes out there and picks not only Georgia Tech to win, but by the way, picked Notre Dame to win the national championship. So I am operating under the premise that he is seeing the future and that we have good things in store for the Irish. David, what about the future now and the tone that this sets? We know the early season out-of-conference matchups, although this one was the in-conference matchup here, but these early season games, a lot of the standalone special games can shape the conversation around not only these teams, but these conferences. And so for the ACC, that's had a bit of a crisis on its hand this offseason, where Florida State is one of the schools suing the conference and has loudly complained about what happened to them at the end of last season with the playoff. How much do you think this shapes the way that people are going to discuss the ACC until further notice?
Yeah, I mean, part of the problem that the ACC faces is that they simply can't afford to miss an opportunity to set a better narrative for themselves because, look, frankly, the SEC is better than the ACC. Not every year, but I think this year it's certainly shaping up that way. And you can make arguments about the Big Ten. You can make arguments about the Big 12. The ACC needs to win big games on national stages to change the tenor of the conversation. And what's more is I don't think there's an elite team, at least on paper right now, in the ACC. Maybe Miami could be that team. Maybe Clemson could be that team. But I think there's a very deep top end of the ACC. So I think you could put together a list of 6, 7, 8 teams that have not more than a puncher's chance at a conference championship or a playoff berth. So in the 4-team era, historically, having a lot of good teams and not a great team has been bad. Like, that has not been the recipe to put teams into the playoff. I don't know how that changes in a 12-team, but I know the ACC goes into every season losing the narrative war, and you've got to do something to shift that back. I don't know that this necessarily is like a nail in their coffin because Florida State was going to lose a game or two somewhere. And Georgia Tech is not as bad a team as people think. This is a pretty good football team. But it was definitely a stumble for one of your premier brands on a national stage. And to a much smaller degree, SMU looked pretty bad against Nevada in the late game as well, which is not great for the league. So look, if Clemson goes out and beats Georgia in week 1, if NC State beats Tennessee in week 2, who cares? None of this, we won't remember any of this. But the ACC is on the clock. They've got to do something to shift conversation, and this is not it.
So in shifting conversation, how many teams, now that it's a 12-team, how many ACC teams do you expect to make the top 12?
I think that the ACC's goal should be 2. Whether or not that's realistic, I think so much depends on how the other leagues shape out. But look, the SEC, if you look at that, like Oklahoma is a team that would love to say we're a playoff team, and in most years thinks it is in that conversation. They were picked 8th in the SEC. So look, I'm a believer. I don't think Missouri is going to be quite what they were last year. I'm still have a little trepidation around Ole Miss. Like, I'm not. What we think today is not what it will look like at the end of the year. But when they signed the financial document saying we're going to give more to the Big Ten and the SEC financially because we don't do as well, the ACC and the Big 12, that's effectively admitting, like, hey, we're not as good as those leagues. And I think that's what the conversation is going to be as we get to the end of the year of like, hey, all right, the SEC's got this team that's coming in at 8-3, and the ACC's got this team that's coming in at 9-2. But that 8-3 is actually better than the 9-2. That's the battle that they're up against.
And it's a battle that they've been fighting for a while now that just got harder after this weekend, there's no doubt. Check him out on Twitter at a David Hale joint. Some of the best threads in the game there. Doing a great job writing as well over at ESPN and covering the ACC. David, appreciate it as always, man. Enjoy the rest of your bacon and Taylor Swift this morning.
Great to talk to you guys.
I'd imagine the Georgia Tech fans are upset that we're not talking about their chances of what they can do. They do have out of conference Notre Dame and Georgia at the end of the year.
Which, by the way, that should be one of those where I don't know if they're going to be an ACC contender. I don't think it gets to that point because to David's point, people are going to see the defense, have more time to digest what's a very new system there. But if you are Notre Dame or any of those other teams that have Georgia Tech on the schedule, let that be the last moment you breathed air and thought that will be an easy out for you based on what you saw last season.
That is absolutely the truth. I don't think they're going to win the conference either, but they've raised a flag a bit.
Program going in the right direction under the Beef head coach. Coming up next, they're obviously on the medal stand, but who else has a place on our all-weekend team? We'll get to it next on GoJo and Golic.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Jesse Cofield, Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr. in studio with me today, and it is time to give out some honors. All weekend teams had a great weekend, you guys, so we're going to go first team, second team, honorable mention. Who is going to get the honors for you guys this week?
And we're going to reverse that. We're going to go from honorable mention all the way up to that first spot. And, Dad, we're going to start it off. We talked last week about Major League Baseball. Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge both on historic pace. Aaron Judge, we're now officially in the mode where college football fans need to be concerned, because after belting his 50th and 51st home runs of the season against the Rockies and going back-to-back-to-back with Juan Soto, him, and Giancarlo Stanton, back-to-back-to-back for the Yankees, first time since 2020, he is now on pace to match or exceed his record from last season.
He's on pace for 63. His record is 62 that he'd hit in 2022. He's had 7 home runs in the last 6 games. He is on an absolute tear, and you're right. They're going to break in to college football to watch his at-bats. It's been incredible, the run he is on.
I was going to say, only 5 players have hit 50 or more home runs in 3 different seasons. It's him, Sammy Sosa, Alex Rodriguez, Mark McGwire, and Babe Ruth. Decent company.
You put Babe Ruth in any conversation that has home runs in it. I'm going to stick to baseball and my honorable mention team and go to Lake Mary in Florida, winning the Little League World Series against Taipei, and did it in dramatic fashion. They were down 1-0 in the last inning, the bottom of the 6th. They got a run, tied it up, went to extra innings. In the 8th inning, they had a man on second. And they were trying to bunt him over to third, and the bunt goes down the first base line. The pitcher gets it and throws it to first, but the first baseman was also coming up to get the bunt, so there was nobody at first. Ball goes in the outfield, kid from second base scores, walk-off win for Lake Mary out of Florida, winning the Little League World Series. So an exciting time for those kids in Lake Mary.
Hell of a call by the coach to lay down the bunt, and way to execute it by those kids. I was stunned. Florida's first Little League World Series title.
I was surprised at that as well.
Stunned by that.
And you're right. The bunt that kid laid down on the first base line was picture perfect. And obviously Taipei with the mistake of nobody covering first. But that's what happens. You know, it's not maybe about you executing, but who makes the mistake? Because if there's someone on first, then there's a man on third, only doesn't score. Game possibly keeps going. So congrats to the kids from Lake Mary.
Moment of glory there. Most kids in the backyard, I don't think you dream about laying down the game-winning bunt. It's usually calling up there. And I know the Babe Ruth called his shot jersey, just sold at market for
$24
million. That's kind of what you dream of. But maybe in a world where, especially with Iowa football being a part of the zeitgeist where we celebrate punts in football, maybe we can too now celebrate a well-executed bunt in this moment.
Fantastic.
Bunts and punts in 2024 would be a strange platform to run on, but maybe something people should consider. Dad, all weekend second team, friend of the program, Ryder Cup captain, Keegan Bradley. Going out and winning the BMW championship this weekend. Going from being the 50th golfer that made his way in to the FedEx playoffs to get a chance to even play at the BMW championships, to now going out there and besting a loaded field, and now having a chance to go in the final outing of the playoffs and win that $25 million prize. A remarkable turnaround from him. He is now the first Ryder Cup captain, as he was appointed that 6 weeks ago, to win a PGA Tour event in 9 years. So big time stuff from a guy that a week ago this time wasn't even sure he was going to be playing in this tournament.
I mean, he was waiting to see if he would be 50th.
I
mean, it was above, it was below 2 weeks ago in the tournament, waiting to see if he would even make the cut, and then he wins as they go into the last weekend coming up this weekend. An incredible win for our buddy Keegan. Good on him, and oh, by the way, a pretty nice paycheck as well.
Well, I was going to say, $25 million at stake next. So he'll start 4 strokes behind Scotty Scheffler. He went from 50th up to 4th in a weekend. Life comes at you fast, sometimes in great ways.
My second team is going to be Maya Moore. Who got her jersey retired by the Minnesota Lynx. She was the #1 pick overall out of UConn in 2011. She was a Rookie of the Year that year. 2014, she was a Player of the Year. She played in 5 WNBA title series, won 4 of them. She was a 6-time All-WNBA player, and I think the 5th Minnesota Lynx player to have her jersey retired. But they went on an incredible run in the teens to win their titles, and it was a nice moment. Obviously well-deserved by her getting her jersey retired, but just another great player that came from UConn.
Yeah, a water is wet, certainly, with that, but standing out amongst the best. I mean, Caitlin Clark talked openly about Maya Moore being her favorite player growing up. The folks at Jordan came out there, Maya Moore, a Jordan athlete, and said, outside of our founder and Michael Jordan, she is the best and most impactful player to ever wear this brand. And so, deserving for that, her husband, Jonathan Irons, there, who she famously left basketball for at the height of an incredible career, to go and help with police reform and the justice around the legal system there for the man she ends up marrying and is still doing that work now. Got to take in that moment and celebrate her life in basketball before he came into the picture. So well-deserved, like you said, one of the all-time greats in the sport, and someone who inspired a future generation the way that Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and others hope to do there. Dad, we are a father-son show, though, so it wouldn't feel right to go anywhere else other than this for my first team all-weekend pick. Harrison Burton goes out and wins his first ever NASCAR Cup race with his dad on the call in the booth. So Burton is 23 years old and has already now been fired from his job this season. He said he's not going to be back racing the 21 car next year with Wood Brothers Racing, but went out here and still managed to get this in a real, dramatic finish with Kyle Busch at the helm here. But his dad and former NASCAR driver Jeff Burton called this race for NBC Sports in the booth. And here was the final call. It was absolutely electric.
Busch goes low. Burton blocks. He gets back up. Comes to the line. Jeff, your little boy has done it. Harrison Burton wins in Daytona.
Wow.
I mean, how cool is that? You know, Harrison said he cried the whole victory lap. His dad obviously helped make that call and then rushed down to celebrate with him, but can't script it much better than that.
Yeah, left the broadcast booth to get down and celebrate it. What an incredible moment. We've shared many moments like that, haven't we?
I mean, you never got to call one of my games, did you?
No, the only thing I called for you kids was one of Sydney's swim meets at Notre Dame. I was the announcer for.
Oh, that's right, because you used to go down and do the timing on the block a lot at those meets.
Before college, before she got to college, I would time me and your mother would run the awards desk as well. But yeah, I never. I did go in the booth with Herbie when you guys played Boston College one year. They brought me in to do a series.
Oh, wow, okay.
And we focused on you for one play, and
it didn't go very well?
It didn't go very well.
Yeah, I had a bad tendency of doing that. You were only going to get like 1 in 5 good plays from me anyway, so it was one where they always wanted to storytell me because they obviously had you in the background. And the production meetings I did with, back in the day, Mike Mayock when he was in the Notre Dame booth, they always wanted to talk about you and storytell that. And I'm like, now doing the job, knowing, hey, when we storytell, we're going to focus on that guy for a couple plays. Boy, was it boom or bust potential with the boy back then.
And I was, like I said, just in first series. Other plays you did well, but the one they highlighted, it wasn't a bad play, but it wasn't a great play. It was a stalemate type of a play. So I guess in essence it was a fine
That's
play.
like me at the blackjack table, man. If the push stays and the money stays on the table in front of me, I'm good with that.
It's an absolute win. We did share the booth together, though. That was fun.
We did get to, I would say, we got to do that after the fact.
Maybe in the future we'll be able to do that again. My first team is going to go to Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, maybe I should jump into this whole social media thing and try and do what he's doing.
There might be some money in this?
He got his YouTube channel going and set a record for how quickly he got 2 million subscribers, set a Guinness record for how quickly he got to 20 million subscribers. Over the last 72 hours, he has reached almost 42 million subscribers in record time. It's 28 million subscribers in the first 24 hours. Now, to put that to money-wise, the calculations of the amount of money you make for YouTube viewers, including ads, he's already at around $100 million. He's going to make on this YouTube channel alone. That's not even the 170 million followers on Facebook, 112 million followers on Twitter, 636 million followers on Instagram. It's ridiculous.
He's the most followed account on Instagram, which is wild to me. We always talk about the little sports bubble that we live in and about how sometimes we overstate its importance compared to pop stars or other people. And then there's Cristiano Ronaldo, who is an entire economy unto himself. An unbelievable deserving winner. Mike Golic Sr.'s YouTube channel will be up and running by the end of the show on GoJo and Golic. Hour number 2 here at GoJo Golic, Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr. with Jesse Cofield. Out here in the Boston DraftKings studio, pumped to be here with the fam. And getting to plenty. Beaux Collins, speaking of family, yes. Notre Dame wide receiver, transferred from Clemson.
Right.
Going to join us in about a half hour on the show. It is now game week for them, getting ready to head down to Kyle Field and take on Texas A&M in the biggest matchup of week 1 for sure. But, Dad, before we get to that, I got the reminder yesterday that there are still some people now having their last-minute fantasy football drafts.
Oh, my God.
You and I got into town yesterday. We were hanging out with my brother and his wife and our nephew Jackson. And next door, Jenny, my sister-in-law, her brother and his friends were having their in-person fantasy draft.
A loud one.
That included a live playing of the national anthem over speakers for the rest of the neighborhood here and a fireworks show to go along with it. So it's just a reminder that while some people are late, this is something that people take very seriously.
Oh,
very seriously.
It is unbelievable how serious. And I've never gotten into the fantasy, like season-long fantasy. I don't have the patience. I appreciate everybody who does, and I always like to know what the loser has to do. The winner, I'm sure, gets a nice prize, but it's always about the loser, right? And what embarrassing thing the loser of a fantasy league has to do.
I just need to say, though, this is what drives women crazy, because men will be like, oh, I don't know how to plan a date night. And then they have like the most elaborate fantasy football draft you've ever seen in your life. It's like, oh, you can plan fireworks, but you can't figure out where to take me for dinner. Like, yeah, oh, your boyfriend's a doctor? Well, my boyfriend is the coach of a make-believe football team for the next few months.
Well,
like,
remember we just did that thing about what hobbies women hate of guys. Fantasy football maybe should have been on there.
Yeah, maybe.
It probably should have been, because, Jesse, to your point, I asked people on Twitter, we always hear about the punishments. I wanted to know, did anyone have any elaborate stories for how they went and picked their order or their fantasy team here? Cody Winters tweeted in, 1 year I had a whole league do a combine and the Wonderlic scores. Said the 40 times were less than impressive and the Wonderlic scores were somehow worse. So you've got that. Brian Rock, on the other hand, though, might be more inclined to lend to the point of not being able to plan a date night. He said, I missed the draft for the league that I was the commissioner for. I thought it was 7 Central, not 7 Eastern. Had to rename my team auto-drafted and then nearly won the championship that year. Although my personal favorite, Band of Flubbers, asked everyone in his group to submit their favorite sandwich and then went on Cameo and commissioned former coach Dave Wanstad to rank the sandwiches in the order he wanted them to pick the draft order. So that's a hell of a date.
Hell yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I've had more than a few cameos of doing randomized draft order for fantasy leagues where I held the power of the league. But I've heard of others deciding the draft, running 40-yard dashes to decide the draft, going down mini slides on a like a little type of a wagon that has wheels and who goes the furthest. All the players hitting golf shots at a flag and judging who's closest and who's furthest away. So it's more than just obviously the league. It's the order, the draft. It's the loser. It's the winner. People make it fun. It's pretty cool.
They do. It is guys and gals being dudes of the highest order and accepting the physical challenge, to go back to the double dare parlance of our time, can be a part of this.
Yeah.
And no one accepted the physical challenge quite like our buddy and ESPN NFL insider Field Gates, who is a part of the Fantasy Focus over there. Great job, awesome show that he does with Daniel Dopp and Stefania Bell and company there. And they got to go down to the Bahamas for an actual fantasy football event through the company there and had to participate in a tackling event on the beach to try and pick the draft order, which resulted in a dislocated shoulder for Field Yates, per the reporting of ESPN NFL insider Adam Schefter. They obtained the exclusive video of Yates trying to tackle a dummy on the beach to determine the draft order, and then immediately coming up knowing what had happened. Field is an athlete. Field understands his body, and Dad, he knew that shoulder was popped right out.
I mean, so there you are in your bathing suit on the beach, tackling a blown-up tackling dummy. So he accepted the physical challenge, and dare we say, he failed the physical challenge.
I mean,
by dislocating. There's no, I mean.
He went airborne.
There wasn't even another person involved.
The dude dislocated his shoulder on the beach tackling a blow-up tackling dummy.
I appreciate the effort and enthusiasm that he brought to this.
You can appreciate it all you want. Nobody else got hurt doing it, tackling that dummy.
No one else wanted it as bad as Field did, apparently.
Oh, man.
He was willing to put his... All we ask is that you are willing to put your body on the line for your team. Field can look his fantasy team in the eye this season and say, hey, listen, I'm not asking you to do anything that I wouldn't do myself.
You know what? You're a really good friend. You're a good friend.
Yeah,
I
you
consider
are
myself...
simping for Field right now.
I want him to come back on the show at some point, so we need to kind of love him.
I consider myself a friend, but even he has got to talk about his own demise here and understand how bad this looked.
It is a good reminder of my greatest fear in life, which is adult injury.
Oh.
The idea of playing adult sports, because Notre Dame every year back at South Bend, people unfamiliar, they have this fantasy camp, and I'm sure other schools do it too, where adult men can just come back, and adult women in theory, although none of them are usually dumb enough to do it.
Yeah, obviously.
They go back and they go through padded football practice at Notre Dame.
Practices.
Money to go back and get yelled at and coached by our coaches. And every year I would go back sometimes when I was in school and watch the games, and it would be some 60-plus-year-old guy tearing an Achilles out in this game, and they'd sign the waiver, so it's all good there. But it's one of those things where I looked at that and I go, they have to go back to their day job and explain to their coworkers why they're on a scooter in the office. I don't want that. I don't want to ever have to come in here with you guys in a walking boot.
I have heard people that played sports that still compete because they want that competitive, juices flowing.
Yeah.
And those that have not played sports up to a high level and want the competitive juices. The competitive juices left my body when I left the NFL. It was over. It was over. I was not going to break into full speed anything after 32 years old.
Nope.
When I walked away, or when the NFL retired me, I retired myself from anything that would go 100%.
Okay, no, two things. First of all, Field has also 2 young children.
Yes.
That sucks, okay? Because they want to be picked up and held, and he's going to be like, like
oh, I saw a picture of him and his wife at the end of the vacation. He had his arm in the sling inside his collared shirt.
And then second of all, you are a filthy liar, senior, because I know that the competitive juices are flowing and you go hard for pickleball.
That is true.
So do not lie to us and
true.
say the competitive juices left your body, because those juices do be percolating and flowing in there when it's time for the pickleball.
I go hard, but to a point. I never go to where I'm going to fall down. I never go far enough where
at your age, we have
balance.
to avoid the fall.
Oh,
yeah,
let me tell you.
The life alert pendant for your birthday is already ordered.
I mean, do not fall. Do not fall when you hit a certain age, and I am at that age.
Okay.
We're going to make sure Dad doesn't fall anytime soon.
He's going to be a filthy liar.
Yeah.
Filthy liar.
Wow.
One of my favorites.
I saw Jesse loading up the corner ready to throw hop that
go.
one at you there,
I do
too.
kind of go hard.
You do go hard. I know you do.
All right, there we go. You know what? All right, well, we wish Field Yates, our friend, speedy recovery from his injury so he can get back to being a father of 2.
Yeah.
In the meantime, Jesse, it's Monday around here. We got some great sound from over the weekend. A lot of NFL storylines we haven't had a chance to touch on yet, so let's get to some Mic'd Up Monday.
Yeah, Mic'd Up Monday, we'll do a little bit of like a QB edition here, so we'll hear from the head coaches on their QBs. We got, some final tune-ups before the regular season opens next Thursday. So Dave Canales, he was all in on his boy Bryce Young. Very happy with what he saw. So against the Bills' second stringers, Young completed 6 of 8 passes. Dave Canales reportedly felt this was a strong enough performance to meet him with a hell of a day as Young entered the locker room. Here's more on Canales on Young's touchdown drive in the game.
Oh, it was great, right? Couldn't have dreamt it better. A nice long drive, 12 plays to get the guys some good work, get them tired in the drive, a 4th down conversion in there, but saw him extend plays with his legs, keeping his eyes down the field, finding guys, and you can see the carryover from practice to the game of people creating space, the play after the play. Those are the things that are so critical for us. He handled the run game with just with great expertise and got us to the right runs in those situations. So I felt great about it.
Okay, so like I said, completed 6 of 8 passes, 70 yards, touchdown, right?
And this is the first time we saw him this preseason.
Yeah.
So very excited, looks good, everything. Is it enough to make you guys feel good? He had a historically bad year last year.
No. I mean, I think he'll be better than his rookie year, but I'm surprised he didn't, Dave Canales, first-time head coach. I'm surprised that Bryce Young didn't play more and the first teamers more in preseason. Now, again, when you're practicing with other teams, maybe that's where you put your focus, and I do understand that. But no, my expectation level isn't unbelievably high. For Dave Canales, it had to be heartwarming to see a good drive in the last preseason game and play the glass half full card, because that's what you want to do as a head coach. But and it's not all on Bryce Young. It's, again, the team around him. It's not stocked very well.
It's not, but in this case, this Panthers team, I believe, was pretty banged up during the preseason between the receivers and the offensive line.
Right.
That's part of the reason you might want to, even in this game, Damian Lewis not out there. Him and Austin Corbett, their center, didn't even make the trip for the game against Buffalo, and both of those guys will be starting at center and left guard. I think overall, Dad, I was really encouraged by this. For our first public look, for a player that we talked about during camp, we didn't hear a lot of buzz about going into year two.
No.
The way that we've talked about with Anthony Richardson. The way we've even talked about with Will Levis in the Tennessee Titans. And knowing Dave Canales' reputation for being the guy there to get his quarterback feeling more comfortable, that's what you saw from Bryce Young. They put him in the gun a lot because you're a smaller quarterback and you're already going to have to work to get him the vantage points that you want. So what did we see? Some of the half-roll stuff in the pocket, getting him on the move a little bit, getting the ball out of his hand quick. You saw some of that relationship budding with his tight end, Jatavion Sanders, who is one of the many weapons that they brought over either between free agency and Deontay Johnson or the draft between him and Xavier Legette. So I think overall, I feel as good as you possibly could coming out of the preseason about a player who had this many question marks coming off an abysmal year. Well, and I look and say, I at least saw some of the confidence back that we saw at Alabama from a player that won a Heisman Trophy.
Well, don't get me wrong. I expect him to be better, but it's the degrees of better, and a lot of that is the surrounding team. They open up in division with the Saints. I do expect him to be better, and they talk about one of your biggest jumps should be between rookie year and your second year in the league. So I do expect him to be better, but I'm going to whoa on the expectations.
No, I listen, I'm not all of a sudden going to talk about, like, you know, he can't win comeback player of the year because, again, we've established that that's now changed. But anything in that vein. But I'm just saying, first rattle out of the box, you see him connecting with his tight end. You saw the scramble play. That was one of the hallmarks. I mean, one of the things that Bryce Young did as well as anyone in college was being able to buy time and look downfield and get the ball out and getting it down there and connecting with Deontay Johnson, who's expected to be one of those guys that helps give him targets who are better at getting open downfield. I guess I'm just saying, you're guaranteed nothing, especially with a sample size this small. And so to see so many encouraging things in one shot, to me at least lets me know, all right, he's walking in already with a ton more help than he did last year. And so if that's the bar, I think they're going to clear that overwhelmingly.
All right, I've still taken the under on their 5.5, I think, is the win total.
Yeah, I said this the other day, and I got asked talking to our buddy Nate Tice over at Yahoo Sports. I think they can win 6 games this year. I think that's an attainable mark. I think them hitting the over on that win total.
And it's going to be right there.
Yeah.
It won't be a lot below, and it wouldn't be a lot above.
No.
I think the number is set pretty fairly.
But again, they play in a division that's sort of topsy-turvy, where the defending champions are a Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that won in some unsustainable ways. Has an Atlanta team with a lot expected of it. So they're going to be an interesting stop in there. Jesse, we talk about interesting, though. The preseason has been dominated really to some extent by the quarterback competition in Pittsburgh that, based on what we saw, appears to have a pretty clear answer.
Yeah, so Russell Wilson saw 5 snaps in that loss to the Lions. They scored their first touchdown of the preseason, Russell and his unit. It was his lone series, right, that we saw out of him in that game. After that, Tomlin pulls Wilson, puts in Fields. He played 3 series, led a scoring drive of his own behind that first-team offensive line. It's a sign, right? We feel like that Wilson should be in line to start in week 1, right? But after the game, Mike Tomlin still wouldn't make a decision, although he did give us a timeline.
We'll make a decision at the end of our work week this upcoming week. We got 3 days of Steelers versus Steelers work, and why not do it then? It kind of, minimizes the Steelers versus Steelers work when we start making decisions prior to the completion of that. We've got ample time to prepare for Atlanta and make whatever decisions or announcements regarding divisional labor or pecking orders and so forth. And so we'll do it at the end of the work week.
Guys, that's coach speak, right? We're getting Danger Russ in week 1. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this feels like a pretty foregone conclusion. And we had heard all through this offseason the Russell Wilson injury at the start of camp, the tweaked calf, sort of opened the door, we thought, for Justin Fields. And Dad, you saw what we have seen from Justin Fields so far in his career. I don't think you saw a massive improvement during the course of a lot of preseason reps. Like, we got to see Justin Fields play a lot of football, and he got a lot of opportunity because of that. You saw the big playability. You saw what he can do with his legs. We also saw the exchange issues with the center as Zach Frazier's taking over there at that spot. Had one in this last game, and still saw a player that, when push comes to shove under pressure, probably trusts himself and his legs a little bit more than he does the plan in his arm.
And we thought with this O-line, maybe that would be the direction to go, that Russell Wilson is a better passer, but maybe not by enough to negate the running effect that Fields could have. But I think it's clear, one series, 2 for 2. Now, before this game, Fields and Russell had 13 drives between them, and only one, it was Justin Fields, led to one scoring drive. It was a field goal.
Yeah, this is their first touchdown drive
is their first
in the
touchdown
preseason.
Drive. And it was one series, Russ goes 2 for 2, and he's pulled.
Yes.
That, to me, was like, okay, Mike Tomlin, Russell Wilson is going to be the starter. I know Mike Tomlin is the best at his talk, controlling the narrative. We're going 3 days of Steelers on Steelers work. I just love his delivery, but it's going to be Russell Wilson starting.
It is, and I don't think the leash is particularly long. Again, financially, we've talked about it. They are not incentivized to prioritize one of these guys' feelings or them feeling like they're looking over their shoulder. It's whatever works the best for the Pittsburgh Steelers in year one with a new offense under Arthur Smith, who comes over from Atlanta, and this offensive line that's going to have young guys in critical positions pretty early on, with Zach Frazier now as the starter in that group out of West Virginia. We know Troy Fautanu, their top pick at tackle overall, so lots of new there, but the old veteran in Russell Wilson, I agree. Going to get the start week one. I will be stunned if we get any other news other than that at the end of this week from Mike Tomlin. Jesse, let's finish this off with by far the most compelling sound of the weekend here, and I feel like that's been a broken record so far since Jim Harbaugh's made the return to the NFL.
Yeah, I can't believe it feels like this is fake, but this really happened. So we had a situation on Friday night in Dallas. Some of the Chargers players, including Justin Herbert, got stuck in an elevator for 2 hours, okay? 2 hours! There was like 13 football players in an elevator stuck. Dallas Fire Rescue had to get them out by lifting them through ceiling panels into an adjacent elevator. So this is like a serious rescue mission. Chargers won their preseason game. Justin Herbert didn't play, but Jim Harbaugh is still proud of his boy for the poise he showed in the elevator. He said, and it was hot as each person came off the elevator sweating, and some had the shirts off. Justin Herbert, his hair was a little wet, but his shirt was completely dry. That was another thing that blew me away. Justin Herbert's a leader. He was a rock, kept everybody calm. Everybody kept their poise. What
didn't
is
Jim
this sound?
Didn't Jim start off by saying, man, I wish I had been there, too?
Yeah, like he wished he could have been there.
The only person ever who has wished to be stuck in an elevator. And Jesse made the point. 11 or 12 players.
Well, you know what this is. We've both been in player hotels where you're in an elevator, everybody's waiting, and you don't want to wait for the next elevator.
Because you know it's hitting every floor on the way down.
Right.
Yeah.
So you jam everybody in, you jam everybody into the elevator, and obviously I don't know why it's stuck, but it would be a good assumption that there was too much weight in the elevator.
Exceeding the weight limit.
Listen, as a former offensive lineman, there is no more humbling feeling than when you try and jam onto an elevator like this, and I've taken many an elevator to the second floor of an academic building to try and go to class after practice. It is what it is. It's called conserving energy. But when you get on and you hear it make the buzz noise that lets you know there's too many people on, and everyone immediately looks at you. My biggest fear in this, because you probably did have a O or D lineman or two in there. I mean, I know I would have to fart in that situation.
I was going to say, who's gassing it up in there, right?
And to try and be the people holding that in. Now you got a tummy ache and you're stuck in the elevator.
And it's hot in there, so it's just expanding. Yeah, I mean, it's so I completely know, and you do too, the situation, everybody just jamming in, and then you're stuck for 2 hours. Guys had to take their shirts off because they were sweating so much. And you're right, it's going to be a gaseous situation. You had to thank God there was no females on that elevator.
Yeah, they would have probably died if they had got stuck in that elevator with these dudes farting the whole time. No.
Yeah, no. I'm already claustrophobic enough.
Yeah.
Being stuck in an elevator with 3 or 4 people, not ideal.
You would have to really do the woosah.
Yeah, you got to get
woosah.
And you know what?
Deep
Justin Herbert did that. That guy has responded to injury this year. He's responded in the elevator. And you were doubting the Chargers going into this season.
Oh.
Shame on you, Dad. Coming up next, another prolific performance from Angel Reese. Next on GoJo and Golic. Reese.
Angel Reese.
Angel Reese.
Barcelona.
Way to go, Angel Reese.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Jesse Cofield, Mike Golic Jr., and Mike Golic Sr. here with you, and we are going streaking in the WNBA. So on Sunday, Angel Reese had her third consecutive game with at least 20 rebounds, while also tying the WNBA mark for most double-doubles by a rookie with 22. So she had 11 points, 22 rebounds, but the Sky did lose 77-75 to the Aces on MVP frontrunner A'ja Wilson's basket at the buzzer. It was crazy. So Reese's 22 double-doubles matched the rookie total set by Tina Charles in 2010 when she was with Connecticut. The overall WNBA double-double record for a season is 28 by Connecticut's Alyssa Thomas. That was set last season. Guys, awesome work by Angel Reese. Great to see. There has been a little controversy in the Twitter streets about this. There are people saying she's padding this stat by getting her own rebounds.
I'm going to shut that down.
Shut it down, Senior.
First, we got to mention that last play by the Aces.
Yes.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
What a game that was. The Aces had a big lead on the Sky. The Sky came back, hit some deadly dagger threes to tie it up. And with a little over a second to go, the Aces had the ball out. Chelsea Gray inbounded the pass. There was a three-person set there that did it. Chelsea Gray's inbound pass on a looping A'ja Wilson, but Kelsey Plum has to get credit for setting the screen on Angel Reese to free up A'ja Wilson. And the long lob pass by Chelsea Gray hit Angel Reese perfectly in the hands like a quarterback to a receiver. For her, the little jump shot, little banker in for the win right as the buzzer sounded was a great play.
Got the LeBron James, Dave Chappelle show reference, game blouses tweet when that happened for the shot by A'ja Wilson, who struggled that night shooting. I mean, overall, A'ja Wilson 8 of 28 in that game and 0 for 1 but 3, but the MVP difference, you keep shooting through that when it matters most.
So to shut down the Angel Reese getting flack for she leads the league in rebounds. Well, yeah, but she's getting her own rebounds. Okay, so she leads the league in offensive rebounds with 152. The next closest is Aaliyah Boston with 89. She has 53 rebounds off her own misses, and that's where she's catching flack. People saying, well, she's missing her own shots and getting her own rebound and padding her stats. Take away those 53 of her own, getting her own rebound, and she still leads the league in rebounds. So back the hell off, all right? She is a stud at what she is doing, not only rebounding, but going for the double-double. So anyone making that argument can stick it. She's still leading the league in rebounds. Take away, again, 53 times she got her own rebound. Take that away. It's not padding her stats. Is she the most prolific offensive player? No. But she's still getting double-doubles at a pretty damn high rate, and she's rebounding the hell out of the ball. So I got nothing but love for that.
Yeah, no, listen, and rebounding is something we've talked about, even not as, basketball purists. It's an effort-based equation for this. And Angel Reese has always been someone who has got that dog in her, even for someone who was technically a Tiger while she was in college. But, last night it was sort of the perfect storm for that. 4 of 16 from the field. It wasn't a great shooting night. She had the bad brick from 3. On the season, she's shooting 38% from the field. So she is not a dynamic offensive threat.
And we knew that going in.
No,
we knew that going in.
We knew that going in, and I think part of this has been the Rookie of the Year discussion, where Caitlin Clark, especially the surge she's had lately, I find it hard to believe that anyone other than Caitlin Clark is going to win that. Both of them are setting records in the ways that their game is predicated on. For her in the double-doubles, for Caitlin Clark, it's been about the assists this season, and now the offensive production starting to match that. But I don't think that means you've necessarily got to demean what Angel Reese is doing, just because, again, at times the offensive portion of the game can look a little rough.
I believe nobody is averaged in the WNBA. I believe I heard nobody's averaged over 12 rebounds a game. And she's not only over 12. She's a tick away from 13. She's at 12.9. So she is really, really just a monster rebounder for a team that's kind of hanging on, to the playoffs. I believe they lost, so I didn't see the latest standings, but I believe they were in that 8th slot. The Fever were in that 7th slot. The Fever so both with a chance.
Yeah, as of right now, the Fever are in the 7th slot. They're 13 and 16, and the Sky are in the 8th slot right now at 11 and 18. They're just ahead of the Atlanta Dream, who are 10 and 18.
And so it's still precarious whether they'll make, and they would have to face 2 of the top teams if they were to go in 7 and 8.
The Liberty, Sun, and Minnesota Lynx currently 1, 2, and 3, and all teams right now that have clinched a playoff.
It would be a tough road if they were 7 and 8 to win, but still to have the 2 rookie stars just getting their teams to the playoffs would be pretty impressive. Since 2015, 2016 for the Fever. To be in, I believe, to be in the
postseason. Yeah, no, it has been a healthy drought for them. That now, courtesy, by the way, the other name you mentioned there, Aaliyah Boston, who has come on and played some great basketball off her Rookie of the Year campaign last year. The other number 1 pick in the Fever's on the court for them, playing in that front court, has been stellar this season alongside Caitlin Clark. So I'm with you there. The Angel Reese slander goes far too far. But again, she's a polarizing personality. And for both of these players coming in, we have seen the discussion that followed them around in college as they both battled, now following them into the WNBA. And there's been a lot of bad that's come with that. But thankfully, because of the abilities of these women on the court, there's also been a ton of good.
Talking about basketball.
Yes, exactly. Now that we get to talk about basketball with them. Speaking of the mess around basketball, though, sweet Jesus, the Mad Lib of offseason headlines in the NBA that we've gotten, Jesse, in these last couple of reports surrounding the Lakers and Luka Doncic, apparently now.
Yeah, question mark. Allegedly, the Lakers have their sights set on Doncic, which just okay. LeBron just signed his 2-year contract extension, but the Ringer's Kevin O'Connor said during a recent episode of his podcast, The Mismatch, that the Lakers could be already looking ahead to their next star after LeBron.
I've reported on this podcast and on the Ringer how they have their sights set for Luka in the future. We'll see if that works out. Dallas just made a finals. Dallas is looking better than ever with their supporting cast. That may not work out. But the Lakers, by not trading their future picks, clearly they're still thinking long-term at this point. They're not going all in like you might expect many teams to do with LeBron James.
I mean, this makes you roll your eyes, right? Because Doncic obviously not unhappy in Dallas, and also, so he's got a player option for 2026, 2027. After that, could be eligible for that Supermax extension, could be worth up to like $345 million.
Yeah, they're just video game numbers.
Yeah, or the Lakers. Yeah.
We say it so flippantly in sports because we're so used to this and the way that, especially in the NBA, it's this percentage of the cap, but still flat out disturbing the amount of money.
I think it's SGA who, I think his timing of his Supermax, he would be the first player to make basically $1 million a game. Like 81 or 82 mil for the year, which and guys don't play full seasons, but still, I don't understand. Maybe for the long run, but I mean, Dallas is a better team than the Lakers.
Sure.
Right now, I know as Kevin said, they're hanging on to their picks, so they're still playing for the future. But I mean, Dallas is flying high right now. I just made it to the finals. Now, we're talking a few years down the road, so supporting cast could change.
I was going to say, and this is the post-LeBron Lakers. Like, we have to make that abundantly clear. This is the idea that LeBron is done. And so for the Lakers, you're trying to figure out, because we've talked about this. Anthony Davis is supposed to be the guy that took the baton from LeBron in a way that just doesn't seem like it's going to happen in a lead the team kind of way. And so Luka Doncic, who, while athleticism-wise doesn't fall into this category, skill set-wise in terms of being that sort of point-forward player, ball distributor, shot creator for his team, very much in that ilk of player. And also, Dad, it's the same old story with the Lakers where this is something where it's like, where people say like, oh yeah, well, like I'm interested in dating Sydney Sweeney, but it's not like something that's realistic. You can say the words.
You say all you want.
With the Lakers, at the very least, they've got a robust history of, hey, we take care of our stars. This is the big market. This is where people want to play. That's about the only appeal they have, but they did, and to Kevin O'Connor's point, they had all those picks that we thought could trade and turn into another Supermax player that didn't. And so that is going to raise eyebrows until further notice.
It is, because you'd think you're going to do it just like we saw with Tom Brady in Tampa Bay, Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. And we'd seen up to this point with LeBron and the Lakers, you do everything you can for that year to make the championship, and the Lakers haven't. I still can't get over, as soon as next offseason, Luka can sign a $346 million Supermax extension.
This to me, though, is like people giving like different things on Twitter. We wanted the edit button. I want LeBron James and Steph Curry. Don't get distracted by this stuff with Luka. Give me the thing I want. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield here. Hoping to talk to Notre Dame wideout Beaux Collins here in just a second. Transfer student from Clemson, where he comes over from one of the teams that was one of the faces of the first, especially 6-7 years in the college football playoff. Now hoping to be a part of the answer at a wide receiver room that basically went full hockey line change for this year to be that next step to get Notre Dame back in the expanded playoff.
Yeah, and he was one out of high school. Notre Dame was one of the final teams he was looking at as well.
Yeah.
But ended up at Clemson. Now gets the best of both worlds and goes to Clemson and now gets to play for Notre Dame as a grad.
And we got to meet him this summer at our golf tournament back on campus there.
Yeah.
Big hit, man. I was like, all right, like we're in good shape now if we got guys built like this playing wide receiver for us, and we now have him here. Notre Dame wideout Beaux Collins, kind enough to join us here on the morning, the first morning of official game week and week number 1 in South Bend.
Yes,
Beaux,
sir.
good morning, man. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing pretty good. And yourself?
Doing well,
Doing
man.
well.
We appreciate it.
Yes,
So
sir.
how does it feel now to finally be back in game week after your first summer in South Bend?
Oh, man, it feels amazing. Just, kind of gearing ourselves looking towards another opponent, man. We had a good fall camp this year. Man, it was very competitive. Got to go against Beaux and those guys every single day, man. So I'm just excited to put our eyes on another color.
That was good.
the truth.
We know that feeling. Talk about the fact that you got to play for 2 years. You went to Clemson, but I know Notre Dame was a thought as a school you were going to go to out of high school. So now you get to play for them both.
Oh, man, it's a surreal thing to be able to come up here to Notre Dame and put that gold helmet on, man. Just growing up watching games against, USC and things like that, I've always had a dream of playing at a place like this and being able to go to Clemson. I got some great experience there, had some great coaches, and now I'm here to, just turn it up a whole nother level for sure.
Well, during your time in the ACC, one of the guys that you got to see there was now your quarterback, and Riley Leonard, who was at Duke playing against you while you guys were at Clemson. I know you guys got to work out together some this summer, but what's it been like catching passes from him this fall so far?
It's been electric, man. He makes plays that aren't even there. It's kind of wild. He's just a great leader for us on offense, and he's making plays that, a lot of QBs just can't make, man. So it should be pretty exciting this year coming into the season.
And as Mike talked about, you got to work out with Riley Leonard and other receivers and other quarterbacks in Alabama. And Phillip Rivers was there. So talk about the knowledge Phillip Rivers imparted on you guys.
Oh, man, every day we came in, he just instilled wisdom. Him and his brother, they had basically like a little drawing board. He'll give us a word of wisdom every day going into the workout or leaving the workout. And he just instilled in us that, it really is going to take all of us this year to reach our full potential, not just one, not just QB. Everybody's going to be needed. So it was a great learning experience for all of us to be down there together. Had a couple transfers down there as well, just, bonding and growing with, one of the greatest of all time, Phillip Rivers.
Now, I got to know, did you guys reach your fullest potential fishing? I know you guys went fishing. I would imagine it was bass fishing. I love bass fishing. So was it bass fishing? And did you catch anything?
Yeah, we were down there. I forgot what it's called, but like straight down below Alabama, we drove out about 30 minutes, was out there for a few hours just going at it. I caught one fish. Luckily, it wasn't very big. It was probably about this big, but I caught one for sure. It was a great experience.
There you go. You got on the board with that.
That's it.
Phil mentioned it's going to take all you guys. For you, especially in this wide receiver room, you're part of a group that is trying to replace and add a lot of production that wasn't there last year. What's been the mentality amongst the group of you guys trying to come together right now in fall camp?
The mentality is, man, just don't be selfish. At the end of the day, we have a lot of guys that can come in here and produce and, just be that guy anywhere they go. But in order for us to get to where we want to go, we all got to go together, man. Just cheering each other on, making sure we're all staying healthy, on each other about, being here early, staying here later in the day, watching film, and just all the small things like that is really drawing us closer together.
So take people on the field a little bit and talk about how difficult, or maybe easy in your case, to learn a new system. They always talk about how it's like learning another language. So how was it for you?
It wasn't too bad. Some of our concepts I've seen before just in the past playing football growing up. But yeah, like you said, the verbiage and the vocabulary of offenses is the main thing that you have to, adapt to and learn, as well as, just play calls, tempo plays, all that stuff. But overall, it wasn't too bad. I seemed like I got the hang of it. I was able to, just kind of be around in the spring a little bit, go to a few practices, and it really helped a lot.
And another thing you have to adapt to is different styles of quarterback, different release of a quarterback. You had a couple of different quarterbacks at Clemson, now another one here at Notre Dame. So talk about that, getting used to the release and the knowledge between quarterback receiver.
Oh man, that just takes a little bit of time, man. Over the summer, like going on trips in Alabama and just having workouts here in Notre Dame, it took a little bit of time to get used to it, but Riley and I feel like we're on a good page right now. Just we stay after practice. If there's a throw that we miss during practice, we drill it probably like 5-10 times until we get it, down, or we just converse over it, and yeah, just go from there.
Part of that is also going to be the conversation with your offensive coordinator, Mike Denbrock, who was a coach when I was back at Notre Dame as a student athlete, and now was one of the big storylines this offseason for Notre Dame. So how would you describe Coach Denbrock and the style he brings to this offense?
Oh, man, he brings a unique style for sure. He's a very fun dude at practice. Just he likes to have fun. He doesn't always like to be a coach that's going to get in your behind, but when he has to, he will for sure. So he brings a lot of juice, a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience to this offense, and I'm appreciative of it for sure.
And listen, we talk to receivers, we talk about catching passes, but also Notre Dame's a running offense as well, so you got to get downfield and block, and you have the size to do it, but talk about the run blocking aspect.
Oh, yeah, the run blocking, man, it's going to be huge for us this year. We got some guys in the backfield that can make anybody miss. So it's going to get to the second level quick, the third level quick. And we got our coach, Coach Brown. He makes sure that we're body on body in between the ball and the defender. So it should be pretty good this year.
So it's now week one for you finally here where all this comes together. Mike Elko is a coach that coached at Duke, so you're familiar with him in the ACC, but getting ready to make this trip down to Texas A&M. I know it's early in the week for you guys, but what do you see already as you scout this opponent for week one?
We see, just a lot of similarities. Obviously, we expect him to do what the defense he had at Duke, but we're ready for whatever, man. We know they may come out and throw a curveball at us defensively, so we're just kind of staying on our toes. We have plans for pretty much every defense they could possibly run, so we're just making sure we can execute, and if we execute, we'll be just fine.
I'm wondering if you can tell us if you want to, you don't have to. Do you know already the first play of the game?
No, I don't. I wish I did. I'm going to be chopping at Coach Denbrock and Coach Brown's next, man, trying to get it. But I don't know now.
All right, there we go. Well, we as a show will officially throw our weight behind pass to Beaux as the first play of the Notre Dame season and see if we can make that happen. I'll start texting Coach Denbrock and see what we can do. But, Beaux, we're excited to have you in South Bend, man. We're pumped that week one is finally here. Best of luck. Go Irish, and hopefully we'll talk to you again soon.
I appreciate it. Go Irish.
There we go. He's got it down already,
yeah,
man. He's been out here for one summer. He's got the Go Irish ready to go.
Get the best of both worlds. Thought about Notre Dame out of high school, went to Clemson, obviously a place he wanted to go, and now is at Notre Dame as a graduate transfer. So big game down at Kyle Field. Texas A&M going to probably be warm.
Yep.
So depth is going to be important.
And like we saw this weekend, a lot of transfers coming in. Him, Chris Mitchell, part of a wide receiver room there. The offensive line coming together against the defense and Mike Elko that, like what we saw, it's the same DNA as that Tyler Santucci-led Georgia Tech defense that led an upset in Ireland in week one. So Notre Dame, a lot to prepare for, but as he said, a lot of time to prepare for that big moment as well. We'll finish it off with this, that, and third, and some big TV news next on GoJo and Golic. All right, time to finish off the show the way we always do. This, that, the third. 3 quick stories to send you into the rest of the day. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review us. Leave us a 5-star rating and check us out live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network, our YouTube channel, Samsung TV Plus, Roku, and all of that great stuff. If you miss it live or any of our great guests, and thank you to David Hale from ESPN, college football reporter covering the ACC, and Notre Dame wide receiver Beaux for joining us today. You can catch those in their entirety wherever you get our podcast, or right here on YouTube as soon as we get done. But guys, it's time to get to this with a little bit of TV news. We saw from over the weekend the reports that Warner Brothers Television has picked up the options on stars Hannah Waddingham, Brett Goldstein, and Jeremy Swift for Ted Lasso Season 4 on Apple TV Plus, set to return here. Dad, how are your feelings about this?
Well, I mean, listen, I hope it comes back. I haven't stayed up with it as much as I should have, but I love the series. And just like the one show we talked about, Outer Banks coming back for another season. By the way they ended the season before, kind of could have been the end, could have been another season. This was the same way they ended the season finale in season 3. Thought it could have been the end, thought you could maybe go on. Now, as Jason Sudeikis says, it's up to more factors than just myself.
And Jason Sudeikis, Brett Goldstein, Bill Lawrence, who now, by the way, has Bad Monkey out on Apple TV Plus with Vince Vaughn, which has been lovely. And if you haven't checked it out, friend of the program, help support him. Lord knows he really needs the help at this point in his prolific career. But a lot of cooks in the kitchen on this one. It'll be interesting, Dad. It was originally written to be a 3-season arc. They at least had that in mind for the show that obviously became loved by so many. It was comfort food during the pandemic at a time when we needed it the most.
It really was. And you wonder when you go too much.
Yeah.
Now, listen, if the money's there and you're grabbing a paycheck, and you're like, okay,
hard to say no to.
Because there's a lot of people involved in this. Sudeikis maybe not needing the paycheck as much. Going to be the executive producer if there's a season 4 as well. But it always is kind of a tenuous thing on how far do you go before you've gone too far.
Yeah. And how do you do it because of how they ended season 3?
There's always a way.
I know, of course, there is time jump or whatever, but it's like, how do you bring everybody back together after that?
It's going to be very interesting here, especially for the wild faction of the fan base that was so obsessed with Rebecca and Ted ending up together in a relationship, which I never understood. That's a friendship. I don't know why you'd want to ruin that.
Don't go down that road.
And I pray that that's not in the cards for the upcoming season, but we will see, as now we'll get another crack at it for a show that has become part of the popular zeitgeist. Went from a lot of people skeptical, could you turn like a bit commercial character into a full-blown series, and it became one of the most beloved characters in recent history. So,
still one of my favorite scenes was him at the dartboard.
It's an iconic moment.
It lives on everywhere, about playing darts with his dad every Sunday till he was 16 when his dad passed away. That was one of the great scenes.
Be curious and not judgmental. One of the quotes from the series that has ended up kind of living on in that form especially. So I'll definitely be watching it. Like, it's a group of people who have earned my trust given what they've put out time and time again, between that, shrinking a lot of the same DNA for that show on Apple. So a couple good ones. Apple TV Plus having a good little run of shows on here. We'll see how that happens. But, Jesse, let's get to that and some baseball history being made today that we've discussed before.
Okay, Danny Jansen is set to appear in a baseball game for both teams, okay?
Yes.
Let me set the scene for you here. So on June 26th, he was in the lineup for the Blue Jays playing against the Red Sox when the game was suspended due to rain. Jansen, he's at the plate a few days later. He was traded to the Red Sox ahead of the MLB trade deadline. Now that game, it's being resumed today. With Jansen expected to play for the Sox, that was confirmed by Alex Cora, making Jansen the first player in MLB history to play for both teams in a single game. Theoretically, he's still at bat for the Blue Jays. He'll have to be a pinch hit for mid at bat. Like, this is crazy. It's just one of those things where all the little pieces had to come together for this to happen.
The amazing thing to me is that it's a first in baseball. Baseball, which has so many stats and so many games and so many years where you can't think that there's a first, that this is an actual first.
Yeah, it's a sport with a littered history of this. We had a couple written down here. Juan Soto debuting before his debut back in 2018. He got to the big leagues with the Nats on May 20th, but later played in a game that had been suspended on May 15th and homered in that game, which means he technically debuted before his debut based on that box score there. So weird moments like that, but in this one we talked about the potential to be the hitter and the catcher in the same at bat is pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously is going to have a pinch hitter. You can't put him in a Blue Jays uniform and go mid-bat and then go change real quick.
Yeah.
But what a you're right, Jesse. It was like everything kind of coming together for this one moment. Pretty wild.
Mercury was in Gatorade for this one, fellas.
Worth noting, this had happened in the International League of Baseball in 1986 before, courtesy of the Baseball Almanac. Dale Holman of the International League did this and notched hits for each team in the same game. So, fun fact, as baseball continues to do the weird thing here, you can always find someone who's kind of gotten close.
Yeah.
Because again, that is just this sport. But speaking of baseball and the things we love most about it, let's finish this off the right way. Bet dog.
What could make baseball better? The answer is dogs. So Lucy May is the new bat dog for the Clearwater Threshers, Philadelphia's single A affiliate. She made an unforgettable debut on Friday. She was released onto the field. She promptly had no interest in the bats, had the zoomies, went to the visitors' dugout. So she's become ungovernable, as you can see. She just went off and did her own thing. She goes zooming around. Yeah. She takes a couple poops. That'll happen in a minute here.
Yep, 3, 2.
Oh, yeah.
Bam.
Yeah.
Poop. It's poopy time.
Poopy time.
Poop. It's an excitement poop.
Excitement poop for sure. You guys, this was obviously an unforgettable moment because who doesn't love seeing dogs being cute and doing funny things? Also, I have to shout out the Threshers because they went on Twitter and they did comment after this started going mega viral, and they said, Lucy May's only 10 months old. She doesn't have it quite down yet, but she's keeping her job, okay? So she's not getting fired for this.
Imagine being the sicko that wanted to fire the 10-month-old puppy just because they did what a 10-month-old puppy does.
It was so funny because they threw a bat out. And Lucy May originally went to the bat, turned, looked at the bat, and then was gone.
Yeah.
Said, I want nothing to do with the bat. No. Ran, and it was toward one of the players. One of the players, ran away from her. I'm like, well, are you kidding me?
Sprinting in the opposite direction.
Everyone has different relationships with how they view dogs. Yeah. And some people, tend to be a little afraid at times. But I do think that instance where a stranger's dog chooses you to say hi to, one of the most enjoyable experiences, I should say, on planet Earth. I go for walks almost every morning on the Strand down by where I live near the water, and it's just a super highway for dogs. And when you see a dog make a beeline for you because they have chosen you for some scritchums or pets, the highest honor that can be bestowed.
Without a doubt. And you can see a tail wagging, he's going to be friendly. And this dog, Lucy May was just out having a ball.
Yeah.
And then there was the excitement poops. That's not shocking. All dogs do that. I'm excited. Oh, God, I have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, but it's like my brother in Christ. They're not releasing an aggressive dog on the field.
Exactly.
You can be assured this dog is safe.
Yeah. The dog was just 10 months old, so obviously very young and just having a ball. And they finally, as you mentioned, the best thing is the dog is not getting fired.
I do appreciate that almost every sport has a way to involve dogs because we've seen plenty of football teams, especially at the college level, have the dogs that'll retrieve the tee on kickoff.
Right.
Like a tee retrieving dog. And then in basketball, you'll see a lot of dogs involved in the halftime shows.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Usually the smaller dogs doing the tricks where they catch Frisbees off their trainer who's working with them. I don't know if soccer has a means of getting the dogs involved. I'd assume maybe an intermission for that as well.
I mean, at the Olympics, we saw the emotional support dog for gymnastics team.
Squad.
Any sport can have a dog be involved. Just have it be the mental health dog.
I was just sitting on the plane coming here and sitting in my seat. My hand was on the handrest, and a support dog came on. You're not supposed to pet him. So I just kept my hand there, and the dog started licking my hand. I was like, I want to pet you so badly. And they were like, sorry. I'm like, no, you don't know how good
Don't apologize.
Do never apologize. No.
You never have to apologize for accepting the love of the good boy or girl.
Never.
And never have to apologize for loving this show. And if you do, download, subscribe, rate, review it. We love dogs and so do you. Leave us a 5-star rating and make sure that's reflected in the review. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you tomorrow.